Woody, if you like Seinfeld, what do you think about Curb in the final season of Curb?
Oh, I'm not caught up on that. I would know.
What do you think, Kyle?
So I love Curb.
Me too.
I've really enjoyed the longevity, and I like that he's taking breaks over the time, and there's that big break in the middle, and he looks so old in the last season.
Everyone's rough.
I didn't finish it. I didn't finish it because he's 78 and he looks 88, and he's too frail and he looks it. I couldn't get through it.
You should finish it. I really liked the way they tied it all together at the end because it harkens back to the Seinfeld finale. They do a beautiful job of it.
Okay. I mean, I will then. I didn't think they were going to have like a crescendo where they really wrap things up well. I thought maybe it'd just be, fuck it.
I mean, maybe you'll be disappointed. I enjoyed it. I thought they did a nice job with that.
I love the show. I've seen most of it. When there's a bit where he's on a chair lift or a snow lift, whatever you call it, ski lift.
Yeah.
With that Jewish girl who's Orthodox or whatever. And she's like, I can't be with a man after sunset. You've got to jump because the lift is stuck. And he's like, are you fucking crazy? And she jumps. Oh, that show's great. Yeah. Just decades of awkward Seinfeld-esque comedy, but the problem is he doesn't have a good supporting cast, or at least a likable supporting cast or
a living supporting cast anymore.
If you don't like Larry and you don't like
JB Smoove, he's great.
I like JB Smoove. He grew on me, but it's not I don't know. He needs like another guy. He's got who's his agent?
Jeff Garland. Yeah,
Jeff. Yeah. Like he needs like another guy there because I feel like most episodes, everyone hates him and he has no one in his corner. Whereas with Seinfeld, they were all so awful that they related to each other and they're like, yeah, what were those people thinking? We're all awful together. Let's get out of here. Whereas like Larry's, it's almost like what if George moved to LA and lived alone and had to like be an awful person by himself? What would happen? Well, his wife would divorce him and his friends would steal her and like he'd lose half of his wealth and nobody want to work with him. That's probably what would happen. So that's what happens. I love when Hurricane Katrina happened. They move a black family, refugee family into his mansion, and they're called the Blacks. It's great. That might be my favorite season. When is that Vivica A. Fox? It's like it's a famous black actress who plays like the refugee black lady that moves into his house, and he ends up divorcing his wife. She takes all of his shit, all that stuff. He just lives this miserable existence.
I have to watch Curb in short bursts.
Why is that?
Because it's so
cringy.
Unbelievably uncomfortable. Like there are uncomfortable situations all the time in Seinfeld and other sitcoms, but like it's aggressively uncomfortable in Curb, where you'll be like, Larry, please stop talking. And he's just yelling something just untoward towards everyone around him. And then, aloof to how uncomfortable it is. I just didn't. I like the show. It's a funny show, but
you really should.
I think I've only seen the first 3 seasons.
Yeah, see, that's what I would recommend at the very least. You watch the season where they do the Seinfeld reunion.
Yeah, that was
because
great.
The premise that's presented to you in the show is that the fictional Larry David is going to do a Seinfeld reunion, but what we, the viewer, get is a Seinfeld reunion, and it's pretty good. It's as good as you would expect. It's cool storylines. Like George had come up with this incredible idea with an app that would show you where any toilet in the city is.
Yeah,
and it was tons of money, but he lost all the money in the divorce, or something like that, or maybe it was an investment, and his money was with Rupert Murdoch or something like that, like one of those guys that embezzled all the money. Like he lost all of his, and there were a couple of good storylines. I think maybe Elaine. I don't really remember, but that's good. And
it goes to show you because you watched the last 2 seasons of Seinfeld when Larry left the show. And it went downhill. You could tell the difference. And now when those guys reuniting, like Jerry and Larry together, you could tell like that season is phenomenal. I definitely recommend it.
I had no idea that Larry left Seinfeld in the last 2 seasons. I just knew that every time I rewatch Seinfeld, which is at least every 18 months or so, because it's I love Seinfeld, I usually peter off around that time.
The final season of Curb, they reference it throughout the show all the time, where people be like, oh yeah, you wrote for Seinfeld, right? And he's like, yeah, not the last 2 seasons. He will say that to everyone who asks him if he wrote for Seinfeld. It's very funny.
There's never been a show that was casted better than Seinfeld with a worse leading actor.
Yeah, Jerry's terrible.
Jerry is like smiling in half the scenes while Elaine, Kramer, and George are just killing it, especially George. Like George is by far Kramer's hilarious, but as far as just actual acting and like his neuroticisms, George is fucking perfect. He might be my funniest favorite character in a comedy show.
In the Curb episode, Larry David gets jealous of Jason Alexander, the actor, because he thinks he's hitting on his ex-wife, and the only reason he's doing this reunion is because he's going to cast the ex-wife in it and try to get back together with her. That's the only reason he says yes to NBC. It's no, and then he sees maybe he can get Cheryl back, so he does the whole bit just to get to her. And all of a sudden, Jason Alexander is going to go with her and read some lines, and they're hanging out together too much. He's like, you know what? I'm thinking maybe I'll play George. And everybody laughs, and there's like, no, we're going to run it with me as George. Well, we're not going to do it. We're going to run it. And they do it. And it's really awkward. And it's kind of good.
He's pretty good at George.
Yeah, he's pretty good at George. He is.
Well, George is based on him. I learned that from you.
Yeah. Jason Alexander didn't figure that out for a year or two. But like eventually it's like, my favorite bit, they're looking at one of the scripts and they're like, come on. This would never happen to anybody. And if it did, no one would be such a piece of shit to react in this way. And Larry David's like, that happened to me, and I reacted that way. That is a true story. That happened. Yeah, I think you've got a perfect storm there. Because Seinfeld is clearly a huge part of that formula, but Larry David's neuroticism and like weirdness, and quirkiness is gold.
I'm sure you guys know, but speaking of that, the one where George quits his job for the Yankees and then decides that was a dumb move and comes back on Monday and acts like he never quit was a real thing that happened with Larry on Saturday Night Live, where he quit his job and then went, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I quitting my job? Showed up on Monday. They're just like, what are you doing here, Larry? You quit. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
He had a writing job on Saturday Night Live.
Keep the job?
No.
They're like,
he was done. Yeah.
Immediately in that episode, the boss is like, what the hell is Costanza doing here?
That really happened.
That's so funny.
And he's like, I regretted it so much instantly. I was like, wait a minute. I had a cushy job where, they weren't using my bit. That's what he's mad about. They weren't using his bits on the show. But he's still getting paid to write comedy. It's just not getting used. So why would you quit when you got nowhere to go? And he just, in a fury, quits and shits on everybody, just like Costanza. And then is like, oh, no. And tries to come back in the next day. It's great. It's hilarious.
Did Costanza get a job back?
No.
Damn it.